I won my court case. The selectmen were arrested for tampering with public documents. I took them to court and won the pressure treatment certificate, the lumber certificate, and the engineered set of plans required by state statute. I won them in court. And when our police chief saw them, he said that the selectmen had been showing them behind the scenes and they were going to make me look like a fool. So the police chief said, I'd like you to respond to some questions about these documents. There's a statute, tampering with public documents to they'll say, cover a wrongdoing. It's a criminal statute. They said, we refuse to talk to you, so he arrested them. They abolished the police department till the day after their trial and walked away scot-free. And that's how these things work. Pardon? Oh, the police are in a budget of our town. So when the selectmen were arrested by an employee, they simply abolished the police department for about a month, waited for their trial to come and go. There was no one to prosecute them and they just walked away. That was 1991. Here we are, it's 2015. And this is the pressure treatment. I'll pass these around. This is the exposed wood. The dry wood, it's not even touching the ground. Okay? Okay, so here we are in 2015. Everybody might think this went away, but at some point in time, some truck is going to go through that bridge, something's going to happen with it, or someone may sue, but the liability for that rests with the town and it rests with the state of New Hampshire. The engineer was moonlighting, had a side job, and designed this bridge. He worked for the Department of Transportation Bridge Inspection. They're not going to arrest one of their own. He resigned from his job and got a job somewhere else. But here's this bridge in my town. How long can that continue? That bridge was built 23 years ago with a 30-year pressure treatment, which was supposed to be 75 years or more with the oil base. So without this group and without activists keeping records like that, this place is full of them. Where would we be? Government officials can rig bids, they can cheat on the materials, they can jeopardize the public safety, unhindered. Just tell us to go away. I won that right to know case in 1991, first one I ever won. And when I won the right to know case, I ran into the rest of the people in the state that did the same thing. And I joined that taxpayers group. And we were quite a force. We've split up. There are now organizations that strictly deal with right to know. They meet here in this office. So a lot of us have expertise in certain things now, but we all have the same thing in common. The veterans group in the back room, Concerned Veterans for America, they're having trouble getting information from some towns, like lists of veterans. They're public documents. They put the veterans on memorials in front of the town hall. Those names are public names. So I have to, sometime this week, call that town and tell them who I am and what's going to happen to them if they don't release those names, like the other towns that have told us they couldn't have done. So that I'll take questions. If anything here interests you, I'd be glad to take some questions.
다른 분의 재산세가 본인에 비해서 훨씬 적게 내고 있다는 사실을 알게 돼서 그 운동을 시작하셨다고 했는데.
Earlier you said that you started doing this after learning that somebody else was paying a lot less property tax than you did?
저희들이 알기로는 다른 사람의 납세 정보는
But
취득하기 어렵다는 거
as far as our understanding goes, it's difficult to obtain somebody else's tax information.
어떻게 알게 되셨나요?
So how do you get hold of that information?
In New Hampshire, anything to do with finances in a town is public. Public employees' salary, what people pay, and because New Hampshire doesn't have an income tax or a sales tax, most people in New Hampshire pay a property tax. Okay? In a property tax, your house is assessed, everyone knows the assessment, and everyone knows the rate you pay. So it's very simple, very transparent. We have people in this state, Supreme Court justices, U.S. Supreme Court justices, New Hampshire Supreme Court justices.
뉴햄셔.
We had a famous writer here in town, in New Hampshire, that wanted to be completely secret. David Souter from the Supreme Court. I have his assessment card. I know how much his house is worth. So, David, there's another one, Supreme Court justice up in near Hanover. We know how much his house is worth. Everybody in the state can look at anyone else's card, and that's the beauty of it.
공시지가가 원래 시가보다 더 낮았기 때문에 아시게 된 건가요?
So how you got to know that that person was paying less tax than he should have? Is it because he was paying less than what he should have in terms of assessed value?
Yeah, what happened was each town during the annual town meeting has to issue what's called a town report, and it comes in a little book like this. It tells you the year, it tells you how much income, how much all the assessments are, and how much has to be raised in taxes. So when you vote on the highway department, they'll say, this is what we need for the highway department, all in favor, police, fire. So you take that total and you match it with the value of the homes, and that comes up with that's your tax rate. When his town issued the town report, there was no auditor's report. The auditor's report would give you the finances where they came from. And no tax collector report. Here's what else happened. We went to the Department of Revenue Administration, and I don't know how aware they were of this, but we went in and I asked to see the file for the town of Windsor. We went through the records. We found letters going back to 1996. We found letters going back to 1996 telling the town, your finances are not legal. You have to straighten your finances out. They never did anything. They were never audited. They never corrected the way they did business. It wasn't until we had the threat of court and the state police came and took their documents away, and it wound up on the front page of the Boston Globe and the local papers that we finally had action taken. The DRA, the Department of Revenue Administration, can't sit back and let everybody in New Hampshire think that's happening in their town too. So that's where publicity, the media, helps us out. And because we don't always get the media to write stories about things that are really happening, we'll tell our side, it won't be in the paper. So with Skip's program, even the reporters come to our sites to find out what's going on. So we get calls from other reporters, and we got calls from reporters to do this. I normally hang up on reporters. The major media will call me, and the first thing out of their mouth is, please don't hang up. And I have to find out who they are and what they want. I very rarely talk to them. We've had so many bad experiences. But now, the shoe's on the other foot. If they want to know what happened, why we're writing at 3 o'clock in the morning about something that they haven't even heard of, they have to come to our site. And we can tell who comes to our sites, and we can tell by the questions they ask. But they come to us now. That's the fun part. Because if there's a right to know case in New Hampshire, we probably know about it. And we have those people come in here and say, here's how you should present your case, and here's the pitfalls of going to court in New Hampshire. We have been so effective in the last few years, we've had some towns come after us. On the wall is three documents with a blue one in the middle. That's a subpoena to me from the town of Atkinson. We've had so much corruption in Atkinson. We've sued them, and they've been sued by other people associated with us so many times. They countersued us and tried to win $30,000 in damages from us, and that was a subpoena for me to appear in court. I think they were trying to scare me. So it's a trophy as far as we're concerned. Oh, and they didn't get their $30,000. We didn't. We did pretty well.
Explain to them how the right to know, they got 4 days to respond.
Yeah, in our right to know law, the Constitution says that your right to these documents shall not be restricted. Then the law says, now the law's been expanded. They have to give you a reason why they can't give you those documents in writing, and cite the part of the law that would exempt those documents. And there are very few exemptions. The exemptions are students' records, like child's records, juries, personnel, and lawsuits, things like that. Something that would affect someone's status or their, say, something that might make them feel uncomfortable, like if someone was on welfare and asked for welfare. You can't always get that, but if it deals with finances, they have 72 hours, I think it is, to respond to you, or they have to give you a letter, 72 hours, or they have to, in writing, tell you, I am denying you those documents because of a specific reason. That's usually where we trip them up. Any other questions? Now, the interesting thing is, when we catch public officials involved in this, we used to get very upset about it, like, they're going to get away, they're going to get away. Now we know, and we track them. So we had a corrupt city manager in the town of Dover, and he should have gone to jail in the other communities before he came to New Hampshire, but we caught him here pretty good. And he had a method for behind the backs of the elected officials. When you work for a city, there's usually a city council of 5 or 7 people. In a town, everybody votes one time a year. In a city, their government has, let's say, 5 or 7 people or a mayor, and they have responsibility for the budget. This guy would go behind the backs of them and give raises to people in the office. So they were very loyal to him. They would never turn him in. He gave the police chief in his town a retirement program where he would have 30-some weeks off. He would have unbelievable retirement. When he found out through the right to know law, he hired an attorney in that case, through the right to know law, he took off for Kingman, Arizona. We tracked him to Kingman. He did the exact same thing there. We linked up with the taxpayers groups in Kingman, Arizona, and they had him run out of town. He wasn't arrested. He tried to get jobs in I don't know how many different locations. When his name pops up on the internet, Paul C. Beecher, we get red flags that he's applying for a job somewhere. We call that town and say, he's a liar, he's a thief. If he doesn't like me saying that, he can come sue me, and it'll all come out in public. Don't hire him. He was unemployed for several years, and now I think he's retired and he's moved to Oregon. But before he came here, he did it in Kansas City. He signed a $900,000 street lighting contract behind the backs of the city council. So these guys, because they work for municipalities, unlike the mafia or a bank robber or a burglar, they eventually get caught. These guys get caught, they just start fresh somewhere else. So in New Hampshire, our little team likes to catch them and make sure that they pay a price for coming to our small state where everybody knows everybody else. So what we could use in this state would be some sort of like special prosecutor where we could jump over the Attorney General's office and have some justice served by a special prosecutor or a comptroller or some third party. Because it's just taxpayers and the AG's office right now, local police, but that's one of our pitfalls. So without that, it's political activism by individuals like ourselves. So, I mean, this is as grassroots as it gets. Our office is paid for totally with volunteer money, donations, and we managed to keep 4 or 5 different organizations at least running out here, and the radio program. We haven't shown you that, but when we're finished, we'll show you the middle room, which is set up as a blog radio. But we put, let's put it this way. When public officials find out we're coming to their office, they usually call their attorney. We know most of their attorneys. The attorneys that represent towns are well aware of us. We've dealt with them town after town. So they would prefer not to have us come visit them. We have, up top is a green, it's a picture with a green background. That is Rosie McNamara. Rosie McNamara was a town clerk tax collector for a town of Ashland, another small town. She misappropriated, stole $2 million before she was caught. And the way she was caught was basically the right to know law. She would juggle the finances in that town and take some for herself. Like give someone a tax abatement, which is a return on money paid for tax, and keep a portion of it. She did this for years. And she was very, friendly with the police department. She was never arrested, but one guy got elected trustee of the trust funds. That means he would have a right to know exactly what's in the budget as an elected official. So he's not like us having to ask for something. He's elected, he goes and sees the budget process firsthand. And I saw a letter to the editor, the union leader, saying, I'm concerned about my town and lack of transparency. I called him up, he asked the right questions, Rosie McNamara got arrested and pled guilty to stealing $111,000.
Croc TV.